Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ernie Pyle World War II Museum Podcast, your podcast of Ernie Pyle, the voice of the American soldier during World War II. My name is Doug Hess, and if you're tuning into the Ernie Pyle World War II Museum Podcast, what we do on this podcast is share with you pieces of Pyle's life from his humble beginnings on the Indiana farm to becoming a Pulitzer Prize winning American journalist and war correspondent who is best known for his stories about ordinary American soldiers during World War II. And today we have some very special guests with us today. One is James Lott Jr., the president and CEO of JLJ Media. Most of you will probably recognize him and his voice because he co-hosts with me from time to time. James, this is the first time we've actually been on an episode together doing the World War II podcast.
Yeah, we never done one together. Either I step in,
Yeah.
When you're away. So yeah, it's our first time. We are starting new ground. I love it.
Absolutely, kind of tag teaming it today. And James, why don't you go ahead and introduce our other special guest that we have here today?
Why there are two of us? Because he needs two of us because he is that important. Okay, so if many of you guys know out there, we have the Ernie Pyle World War II Museum in Dayton, Indiana. That's where this podcast started. That's our collaborator. Shout out to them. But there are also other Ernie Pyle stuff going on. There are Ernie Pyle schools throughout New Mexico, California, other places like that. I talked to some of them too. But there's also the Ernie Pyle Foundation, who has been always very kind to me online when I've shared certain things. We both like Ernie Pyle, so that's like, hello, there you go. But we're so fortunate to have someone who actually is working with them, and also he's a multi-hyphenate himself, just like me and Doug. He does all kinds of stuff, and if you have a keen eye, he and I have something in common: the soap operas and television. He has film, television, theater, audio dramas. We have a few of those here in the JLJ Media. Audio dramas. Work with shows like All My Children. My favorite show of all time, Santa Barbara. He's done shows like Disney's Invincible, American Heiress. But he's also he's done TV, film. He's also a writer, an audio storyteller. And what he did recently was he did create a thing and starred in, because he can do that. He can do both. The award-winning series, The Ernie Pyle Experiment for NPR. Then you had a little network, radio kind of network, NPR affiliate, WFIU in Bloomington, Indiana. Because Ernie Pyle's from Indiana, all makes sense, right? He's a current board member of both the Ernie Pyle Legacy Foundation and the National Audio Theater Foundation, which I never heard of before until this. So I'm very excited. Another thing that he also did too was with the Ernie Pyle Legacy Foundation is the complete works of Ernie Pyle, a project hosted on Substack. Some new thing I'm learning about Substack. I have friends on there learning about that, where one Pyle column is posted every day. That's dedication as a writer every day. Eventually, the whole goal is to have everything Ernie Pyle has ever written will be in one place. So I love that idea. Archivist, added to his title also. Help us welcome, and I hope I'm not butchering your name, Michael Brainard.
That's it. Hello, gentlemen. Wow, that was quite the introduction. I probably don't even need to be here anymore.
Thanks for coming by. Everybody, we'll see you next time. Bye. And also, he's also a handsome dude, great mustache, great hair. That in there too. Put that all in there too.
I have a mustache made for radio.
Yeah, he's referring. Also, I have a face made for radio. I was told that. Yeah, it's great.
Hey. Me too. So we're all in the same boat.
So welcome to the show, Michael. We're actually glad to have our worlds come together.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Thank you.
So go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just going to say, Michael, I think a lot of people understand what a museum is, so we have the Ernie Pyle World War II Museum.
Yeah.
But sometimes when people hear foundation, what does that mean? And what do you guys do? If maybe we could just start off by having you explain a little bit about what the foundation is.
Sure. And I've been to the museum, and I love the museum in Dana, Indiana. I mean, anybody involved in the Pyle universe, has to have made the pilgrimage.
Yes.
And if you haven't, please do go. The Ernie Pyle Legacy Foundation was set up by some existing family members of Ernie's down the line. Ernie didn't have any kids, so these are cousins and such. Jerry Machino, his wife Wynn Machino is the niece of Ernie. I don't know exactly what the lineage is
Correct lineage. Yeah.
that, but and she remembers meeting him. They are both um, have been around a while, and Jerry was a vice president of marketing at Levi Strauss Company, and so he is just a natural salesman. He's a force of nature. I don't know if you guys have ever met him or talked to him. And he got me onto the board. There's a long story there, but I was, I think I was the first non-family member that was asked to be on the board. There's a couple of us now, uh, but we are, the foundation is around to simply raise awareness of the life of the great Ernie Pyle, to raise awareness of his life and works. And so we are involved in projects that do that. We went to a couple years ago. We went down to Belton, Texas, to Henry Wasco's hometown, which is Ernie's most famous, piece from World War II. It's in Brave Men, the book Brave Men, and it's what he possibly won the Pulitzer for, that and other things. And the family of Captain Wasco lives down there still, and we did a day at the school, at the Henry Wasco Auditorium of Belton High School, and also at the VFW, the Henry Wasco VFW in Belton. And yeah, so we were responsible for putting that together, and I got to speak in front of a auditorium full of high school kids and tell them about Ernie and read that particular story. And then I also got to read something else, which was a gift. I had never heard it before. It is the deployment letter of Henry Wasco, or the last letter that was sent home to him after he was killed. And I put it up on the complete works of Ernie Pyle, which is on Substack. I'll get to that later and get everybody there who needs to go and see it. But on Memorial Day, I posted that letter. And it's remarkable. Everybody back there who was educated knew was taught how to write in cursive. Everybody had to flourish to their writing. Their letter writing was, on point. And so was this guy's. And not only that, he was just a wordsmith. You could tell he was a reader because he was able to put it out in and the form that he did. It's an amazing piece. And it talks about his desire not to die for his country, but to live for it. And that meant live a life of service. And it's no wonder that his men loved him. You read that and you get to really know and understand that. So I implore you, anybody who's an Ernie fan, to get out there and read that. You'll see what I mean. So that's one of the things we did. Jerry was also responsible for putting together the National Ernie Pyle Day in in 2018. Excuse me, which Congress they all voted on, or I don't know what the word is there, but they said, okay, this is the day.
They proclaimed it. It's fine.
Yeah, and Jerry was sort of the impetus there. And also the complete works of Ernie Pyle is sponsored by the Ernie Pyle Legacy Foundation. And yeah, we have things that we do every year on April 18th and August 3rd, the two, Ernie's birthday and the day he was killed. This last year, it was the 80th anniversary of his death. And so we were in Honolulu at the Punch Bowl, where Ernie is buried. And we had a day there to memorialize him. So we do things like that. And we're good friends of the museum and everybody involved there. Steve Key and your cousin, right, Doug, is Phil.
Yep.
He gave me a tour there at the museum, which was second to none. He's amazing.
Yeah, Phil will probably, in all honesty, he put a lot of effort and time into learning things. He was a big help when creating that museum after the state kind of walked away from it, making sure that it was still intact. And
I remember
he'll
that.
probably, yeah, and he'll probably forget more than most people will ever know when it comes to Ernie Pyle. Just a
Yeah.
wealth of knowledge.
I would take him on in the Ernie Pyle category of Jeopardy, though.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that.
No, he's a wonder himself, that's for sure.
He
And
is.
I wrote a character based on him for the Ernie Pyle experiment. I think it's episode 3. I'll let you know which one it is. And his name
Please
is
do.
it takes place in the barber shop of Dana, Indiana, and he's in there. Because
I
I remember
love it.
walking around, he was there for National Ernie Pyle Day in Bloomington, and he's walking around Indiana University, and he's a Purdue grad.
I
And
know.
and he all he did was like was just rail against IU, saying, "What? Where do you think they got those? Who do you think drew up the plans for these nice, fine buildings here? You know, Purdue grads." It's so funny.
Uh,
He was,
oh yeah. Uh, He loves to do a good ribbing in terms of all the fun. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
But I have a question because this is that's all great and good, but like you're in Los Angeles like me. So
Yeah.
everybody, the fans already know where I came from, how I got there through Doug, obviously, and our work together. But how
Mhm.
did you get involved with them?
Absolutely.
With what?
And
With
it,
the
anything Ernie
again.
Pyle Foundation, like how
All
did
right.
you get
Here's
involved?
it. I'll do it quickly. I I first when I was on All My Children back in the 80s. I'm going to do this quickly, right? I'm going back to the 80s. Uh,
We're all there, fortunately.
being an avid reader, especially back then, I'm not distracted by an iPhone. Um, I went to a used bookstore and I was just perusing things. And I pulled a book off the shelf, and attached, stuck to that book, was an Ernie Pyle book. And it fell to the floor. It's one of those moments. And I picked it up, and it was I can't remember the Nichols, David Nichols book, and it was a compilation of Ernie's pre-war writings, and then also a little bit of a bio that he wrote in the beginning. Of course, I didn't know who Ernie was at the time, and it led me to Ernie's biography by Lee Miller, um, and I came to Ernie in his pre-war writings. That's how I discovered him. I didn't know, I didn't read the war stuff until years later. And I was a huge fan, became a huge fan of his writing then. And so I've been tooling around with the idea, wouldn't it be a great idea to have an Ernie Pyle movie? You know, there should be a biopic out there of him. I thought about that a long time ago. And so I sort of like compartmentalized that throughout the years. And I'd been doing in the early 2000s, I had been doing a guest artist spot at a college in Missouri, Canton, Missouri, called Culver Stockton College. And so they'd have me in like every 4 years after the students had cycled out. And I got to be the guest artist in a play with the students. And other actors and celebrities would do that on a revolving basis. And then somewhere around 2015, they asked me if I had any plays that I had written because they knew I write. I said I do. They said, why don't you come out as a guest artist, but this time we'll do your play. And the play is called War is Coming, Ernie Pyle. And it's about Ernie and Jerry pre-war, heading toward war. She doesn't want him to go, of course, and he wants to go. Uh, and I get a phone call from the school. We're in rehearsal. And they said, the Ernie Pyle Legacy Foundation called and they want to talk to you. And I said, oh no, they're going to shut me down, you know? And so I get on the phone and it's Jerry. And of course, he found the Google alert that we're doing this thing and he just wanted to know about it. And he was all for it, loved the idea of it. And fast forward to Ernie Pyle Day, he asked me if I wanted to come out there to Indiana, and I did. And I read two of Ernie's pieces, pre-war pieces, the Snake Story, and what was the other one? I don't remember. And so, so I did. I went out there, and it went over well. We all had a good time, uh, and then he asked me to be on the board. That's the short version, guys. I could go into
But the thing is, I mean, it's funny because you and I are both examples of how small this world is, and that you could be located somewhere and then be somewhere else involved.
right.
That's what I was asking. Is you're not in New Mexico, where's a lot
Yeah.
of Pyle stuff. You're not in Central California, where there's some Ernie Pyle schools there too. You're not
Yeah.
in Texas. You're not in Indiana.
Yeah.
You're
I know.
not. Neither am I. I mean, I'm neither am I. But
Sure.
there, here we are. Talk about this.
Right. Right. Did you grow up in California?
Yeah,
Yeah.
first generation
So did
California.
I. In elementary school, we're all taught like in the third grade to about the missions, the California missions, and
Yep.
we're all made to make a a sculpture of a
Yes.
mission.
Yes.
And I made mine out of mud. Most people make them theirs out of like sugar cubes and such. Uh, but I say that because I think that everybody in Indiana had to do something like that about Ernie Pyle in the third grade. So everybody
True,
there
right?
knows who Ernie is.
Yeah, and what's really nice is we have a lot of school kids and a lot of schools around our area that'll come to the Ernie Pyle Museum. Unfortunately, I think things are getting tighter and tighter with school budgets and travel, and I'm afraid that those days are going to probably be coming to an end before we know it, which is very unfortunate because, I mean, for a lot of these kids, they don't realize the history they have in their own backyard.
Right.
And I've always said, and I think James would agree that he's heard me say this from time to time, is there's a lot of hidden gems in our communities that we just don't even take the time to know what's in our own community in our own backyard a lot of times.
Yeah.
I always say that because I went to school for journalism. So, and we studied some war journalists, but he wasn't one of them. But not in California. I went to school in California. I went to Cal State Chico.
Yeah.
So what they didn't teach him there. So
Yeah.
what turns me on about him is all the journalism stuff. I mean, all of it. I mean, all of it. Just like, he
Oh
was
yeah.
personable, and the way he wrote, and just like that's what got me hooked in. This has only been a
Yeah.
couple of years. I'm not even. I'm a newer fan. You're a long time fan. You're from this place, but I'm finding I always call it the flyover states. There's a lot of history of our country in the flyover states.
Oh, so much. So much.
So much,
Yeah.
so much to mine from. Uh,
Every place has their own little
Yeah.
heroes, or every states have their favorite sons, and you know, we don't necessarily get to hear of it in major media or storytelling or any of that, because it's not in our own personal background. It's hard to stir interest in that a lot of times. There's a guy in my wife was in a art show in Prescott, Arizona, and there's a statue in the courthouse square there of a guy named Bucky O'Neill, who was a part of Teddy Roosevelt's, Cuban campaign.
Oh,
And
that's right.
his story is so fantastic. And it's a great sculpture by Solon Borglum, who is Gutzon Borglum's brother, who he's the guy who did the Mount Rushmore. And
oh,
he's an incredible sculptor. And I just love that idea. I don't know why I bring it up, other than I might want to dive into that one at some point.
but,
I'm
but,
just a
but
history
Michael,
buff.
but here's the thing. This leads to my next question, kind of, and that is, um, what is connecting you to him so hard that you are creating audio stuff with him, and and
Dude, I have no idea. I have no idea. People call me obsessed. I think I am obsessed. I don't know why.
Wow.
I don't know why it's stuck with me. But I'm a huge fan of writers, John Steinbeck, fave. I mean, all of those writers from that part of the last century, in that time, from 1910 to 1950, are amazing. And Ernie wrote during that time, but if he wrote in long form, if he wrote novels, we would know him. Everybody would know his name,
Oh,
and
I
he'd
think
be
so.
down in the pantheon of writers
Yeah.
of that era. But he wrote for newspapers. It's different. And his stuff gets published once and it's done. It gets put into compilations. You can find a copy of Home Country on eBay. You can find Brave Men is back out, by the way. You can find those books. Um, but also those are curated, they're edited down. We don't know what the real columns were, which is leads me to the complete works of Ernie Pyle. It's why we're doing it. We're putting those things in the form that they were originally published in his original paper, because even paper to paper he was edited. So this we get the most of exactly what his stuff was. Um, so I and I also think that, the way we read things nowadays is in such they're so compartmentalized. We only have a certain amount of time on our iPhones to read these things, these stories. Well, he wrote blog posts one a day, 6 days a week
Yeah.
for 10 years, 10 straight years.
Yeah.
They're out there. And so when you read these, it's like, gosh, yeah, I can get into the habit of reading one Ernie Pyle story a day for sure. Um,
His
so
life
my
was
tandem,
his life was cut short. I mean, it was like,
oh yeah,
I think I also
yeah,
does it too, right? It's cut
oh
short.
yeah. There's everybody always wonders that what would he have done if he went on? Would he have gone into television like some of the other guys, Edward R. Murrow, Probably not. He was contemplating quitting. He wanted to go and open up a jewelry store in Albuquerque.
They
Uh,
have property down there. I know he was down
yeah,
there. I said he was down there. Yeah.
Native American jewelry, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So who knows what he would have done? He wouldn't have been able to get away from writing. That's just who he was.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's amazing that here we are still talking about him 80 years after his death.
Yeah.
And Michael, like you said, I think there is a resurgent in who Ernie Pyle is or was, I should say, out there. But it also amazes me people who are even in the state of Indiana go to IU for journalism and still do not know who Ernie Pyle was, even
Yeah,
though they
they
got
they
statues of
don't
death
they
in school, right? I mean, am
well,
I
it's
wrong?
only because they only read what they're told to read
Right.
and the big hits, Captain Wasco, the D-Day stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and only a couple of his pre-war stuff makes it through
Yeah.
uh, to the zeitgeist. Um, but they
And
are taught these things, and I'm sure that there are teachers out there teaching writing, looking at Ernie's stuff and saying, "You guys pay attention. Look how he writes this. Look how he opens it with a sentence that is almost a query, and then he goes into it." Nowadays, you click on anything on the internet, and you get the headline, and then you're looking for the answer to that headline. This is why I'm clicked, is that damn headline. And it's like at least four paragraphs down, you finally get close to the answer. And maybe it's in the fifth,
Right.
but there's a bunch of baloney in the first three or four paragraphs that is redundant, unnecessary.
Yes.
Uh, and it's all designed to make us do something, some kind of behavior,
right.
this clickbait stuff.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you look at
And
Ernie's stuff and you really want to learn how to write, you writers out there, you want to learn how to write in this way and have a successful Substack yourself, look at the way he writes and get
absolutely.
into the habit.
Yeah. I do a blog every day, so I know. I'm
That's
on
great.
Substack's it's on my webpage.
Yeah.
But I mean, I
You
do.
got to be in the chair, man. You got to be in the
Yeah.
chair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I'd say as gentlemen, we are dinosaurs. We are
Yeah.
dinosaurs. I mean, you just said newspaper. Like, what's that? I mean, like
My kids
my
deal with
grandchildren
that.
Oh yeah.
don't know what that is.
Right.
They don't even know what that is. And
Who's that? Name a columnist out there that's working. George Will.
Yeah.
There's a few.
right, I was saying a few.
Every paper had many.
I know. I
Absolutely.
remember.
Absolutely.
My
Well,
stepfather, who passed away a couple years ago, he was in his late 80s. He still got the newspaper. It got smaller and smaller in LA.
Yeah.
Like LA Times got, which is sad. LA Times was a reputable.
Yeah.
yeah.
It got smaller and smaller, and it's like, wow. It's like it's just not happening. It's just not happening anymore. It's just not.
Yeah.
You're right. The columnists are gone. It's
Yeah.
all op-eds now. Half the pages are just like people writing something and they put it in the paper.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're exactly right. Not only is newspaper dying, but and our children didn't get to experience a newspaper, in terms of that. But something else is even television. When we were growing up, there was only a handful of television stations out there, and then
That's right.
you had some cable, and you had to be lucky to get cable depending on where you live. And now, and I'm exaggerating, probably not by much, but there's literally hundreds of different channels out there. And when we were kids, you'd get up on a Saturday morning to watch your cartoons, and you had to be in that time frame
Yeah.
in order to catch that. Now, kids
And
just
if you didn't, you were out of the conversation for the week at school.
Yes.
right,
Right.
yes,
Right.
You had to
absolutely,
be there.
So
yeah,
so I like to think that between you and the foundation and us and the museum, we're keeping Ernie alive. I
Yeah.
find the conversation out there because no one's writing cursive. No, my kids don't know how to write cursive. They don't know how to write cursive.
Yeah.
They're not teaching. I'd actually be curious. I don't know if you have, Michael, that's a question. Have you been to some colleges and some of the latest journalism classes? I don't even know what they look like these days. I don't know what they're teaching them, to tell you the truth.
No, I don't.
And
I
here's
haven't.
AI. Just do it this way. Like type in some words and AI will do it for
At
you.
the foundation, we have a relationship with the media school at Indiana University. So we know some people there and occasionally um, we visit. Um, but that's an amazing building that they have. You walk in though, there's screens everywhere,
Oh wow. Okay.
right? It seems
yeah.
like um,
Impressive. It is.
yeah, it's like a center for like NASA,
Oh
people putting
Yeah.
people on the moon. You walk in, there's all these screens everywhere. And yeah, and they still have the Daily Student, which is the newspaper there that Ernie was the editor of famously.
Right.
And so they still put out a newspaper, I believe a hard copy. So it's being taught. It's like you have to keep teaching them how to make the hard copy because maybe someday we go back to that. We don't want to lose that.
That's right.
It's
right.
like horsemanship. You can't forget how to ride horses and take care of them because who knows? There might be a day we don't have cars again.
But and see, when you say that, just I want to get you off topic, but I just want to mention to folks. I'm a I like vinyl. I like cassettes.
Yeah.
I like, physical media. Physical media is coming back. It's coming back. Like
Yeah.
record sales, book sales are all just like, because you're right. One day these things are going to shut down. These phones, sometimes technology not doesn't work. Streaming services are taking down stuff. And you're like, I want to hear that song. I want to read that book. So now physical media is coming back in. So it's funny you say that. I ride horses, also know how to ride horses. Like you can't just not, AI's not going to make you ride a horse. You have to know how to
Sure.
serve people.
Got to know how to hunt. Got to know how to fish.
Right.
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 Yes. The basics.
So while our grandkids are signing their signatures with X's, there's still us out there who know that there's other stuff you have to kind of, keep it going, I think. But
Yeah.
I think between the three of us and the organizations we're with, we're helping to keep Ernie Pyle's legacy alive and in the conversation.
Yeah,
Right.
I think you're right. I'm a big fan of this podcast, and I love the people that you guys get on. And even though it's peripheral, sometimes it's still very interesting. And yeah,
Well, we appreciate you saying that because one of the things that I'm a big believer in is just keeping World War II alive.
yeah,
And there's a lot of great stories out there
Yeah.
that need to be shared.
you guys know that Brave Men is back in print, right?
Yes.
That we were at the foundation, we were partly responsible for that. We control the rights to Ernie's books. And so Penguin
okay.
came to us, Penguin Classics came to us, and they said, we want to, and we said, of course, we would love that. And yeah, and so we've done that. It's doing really well, it's selling really well. And then a couple months after they were getting it going, they said, we need to record the audio book. Do you know anybody who you would like to read that? I said, I know somebody.
I think you do know somebody, don't you?
So I laid down the Death of Captain Wasco on Pro Tools, sent it into them, and I got the gig. So that's me.
Of course you
That's
did.
my voice on. If you go to Audible and you get Brave Man,
You.
Be kind in the reviews, please. But I
Who's
had a
this joker
great
reading this
time.
book? Who is he? Like, what's
Really, in my acting career, it's a highlight. It's an absolute highlight. So I was there for almost 7 days, 8 hours a day
oh yeah,
recording it, and it was really special. I'm surprised I still have my voice left
Yeah.
I love
Well,
that.
after that.
Michael, a couple other things that I think people would be surprised about Ernie Pyle. Now, those that really know and study him are not surprised, but he covered aviation before he got into
Yeah,
the war that he's probably
yeah,
been
for two and a
for.
half years.
Yeah. And the other thing is, him and Jerry traveled the country,
That's
and
right.
he was right before he was, if you will, became famous. I mean, I think he was already famous. You could make that statement,
Yep.
but really solidified his reputation with World War II in
Yeah.
terms of. So he was
He,
an
you could
interesting individual.
you could see his progression from
Yeah.
the aviation column, which was from 1929 to 32. And then
Mhm.
he was promoted to editor, and he edited for a few years. Um, and then in 1935, he's like, I got to get out. And he got the gig of being a travel writer. So he jumped
Right.
in a car, 1934 coupe, Ford coupe with his wife, and they toured the States for 5 years and wrote. And she was a part of it. To what
Yeah.
extent, nobody really knows. It's interesting for me to read through some of the complete works of Ernie Pyle, and I discovered a couple of columns that were like not necessarily in Ernie's voice, and I'm wondering if she was sitting at the typewriter
Yeah.
that there's speculations. It's all speculation and
Absolutely.
nobody knows. But she was there. And Ernie, and what she knew about Ernie is that he had this special talent of just being able to stand somewhere and people walk up to him and start talking. He just was a magnet for interesting people. There's a guy, Bossy, oh gosh darn it, I can't remember his name. Up in Massachusetts, there's a story and I printed it out. It's out there. I'll find it for you and I'll send it. You can put it in the notes. Bossy
Sure.
Gillis is the guy's name, and he was the mayor of this town, Newburyport in Massachusetts.
I've been
And
there.
he had gas stations on both sides of the road because he wanted to get all of the commerce. And what a character. And I found an old photograph of him and I put him up, and he just absolutely looks like an old Hollywood um, character actor. And and it's hilarious what Ernie wrote about him. And so these are the kinds of people that he would find, uh, and and that's what he developed. And he certainly did that in the wartime. You go through Brave Men, and those characters pop up all over the place, and people loved him. The soldiers, we already know this, they loved him dearly. They read him every day. They felt that he was a part of the family, and that's how everybody else felt about it too here in America. You know, all of our
Which
grandparents and they all knew who he was. He was the most famous guy in America. When he died 4 days after President Roosevelt, his death usurped the death of the president in the hearts of the people. We experience that every now and then. I remember when Prince died, the
Oh,
musician Prince
yes.
died.
yep.
Everybody just is like, "Oh my God, you're a Prince fan?" You know,
Right. That's right.
it hit everybody
It did.
hard.
It did.
And that's the kind of thing that it hit America hard because they felt like because he wasn't writing about troop movements and all that. He was writing about the guys. And and they felt that it was a family member, that died. A guy
About
like that is worth saving, right? A guy like that is worth um, um, propping him up to the new world and letting him see what he was all about.
Well,
And
that's my connection to him. Like if
yeah,
I try to do my own shows, my own work, is have a personal committee. I have like a fan base or whatever. I
yeah.
try to like connect to them and
Yeah, and
bring
and
Pyle to them.
one other thing, the stuff that we're printing right now, we started on April 18th, is we started in August of August of 1935. which is his pre-war writings. And this is going to take probably 4 or 5 years to get to the wartime writings. So we're not even there yet. And what if you want to know what life was like back in the 30s, read this column every day. It's a history lesson for sure, but also we are all reliving the politics of that time right now. Not just the politics, but policy. You
Right.
know, the work, the WPA
Yep.
that Roosevelt put together back then has been trying. They've been trying to dismantle that ever since, and we've been going to battle on those issues and at those lines, ever since. So if you really want to know what the time was like, you're going to read this stuff and draw comparisons to what life is like now. Um, so that's why I think it's important. And that's why I think the complete works of Ernie Pyle is important as well.
Well, and the other thing that I think is important that Powell didn't write just in a certain region or for a certain state, but he covered everything, and we got a good balance out
Yeah,
there. I mean, we wasn't biased,
no.
and I mean that in the
You
sense
went to
of
Mexico, you went down to South America, you went to Alaska,
the
you know.
main, you name it, and everything in between, and we got a good balance of what life was like.
Yeah. And here's a little Easter egg. The ones that I was just working on today, that will be dropping, I believe July 27th, 28th, 29th, is a story about how Pan Am, or no, Continent, I can't remember the name of the airways that became American Airlines. They were trying to open a route from the United States to Australia. And so they're going to all of these little islands, like Midway Island, or these islands
Hmm.
out in the Pacific. And he's writing it as such, as like they're putting Hawaiian boys out there to stay there while the supply ships come to create airports for the airlines to land and gas up and keep going to Australia. Hold on. What do you think they were really doing? What do you think they were really doing there? Right? That was the US government setting those islands up for war, the coming war, right? I mean, it's obvious.
yeah.
So go
Yeah.
and read those things. And that's a thing. There you go. I mean, if you are a World War II enthusiast,
Yeah.
those are the kinds of things that, well, you hear about in books, I
Right.
suppose.
Right.
You pick it up here and there, but here is in real time a description of what these Hawaiian boys were doing out there, preparing the way for building these landing zones, where the Navy would patrol out there. And of course, they all were part of the war in the Pacific. So that's coming in July, end of July to 2025. It would be July 27th, 28th, and 29th on Substacks. If you go in there and subscribe, you'll be able to get them in your email, one a day, every day, a reminder to come and read Ernie. So yeah, subscribe, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
I think
Pretty
that's
cool.
good. Okay.
Michael, what are some of the things that the foundation is looking to do in the future?
How can people help the foundation if they?
Yeah.
Well, if you go to erniepilefoundation.org, you will learn about us.
Okay.
We do have a scholarship at the University of New Mexico that we are trying to, a journalism scholarship, that it's evolving there. It's evolving there. We've had it for a while, but it's kind of what's happening is that students aren't going to school for journalism anymore.
That's true. Yeah.
And so the classes aren't that full of with students, to learn about this stuff, because there's no jobs in it, right? There's just no
Right.
jobs in journalism anymore. So, anyways, we are trying to uh, evolve that with that university, and perhaps other places, for that. We like I said, we did the the Captain Wasco Day. We might do another one of those. Ernie Pyle Day's coming up on August 3rd, and we're trying to get something going every other year with that, either in Honolulu, which we did this year, or in Bloomington, or in Albuquerque, or maybe even in Dana. Maybe you guys, we ought to team up on something.
Or go to Albuquerque. I go there all the time.
Yeah, I love it. I love it there.
I know,
The
Netflix has a
library.
studio there too, and the library's there too. But I was like, go to Albuquerque. It's not that far from LA. I'll go over there real quick.
I do too. I love New Mexico. I could easily live there.
Me too.
I absolutely see why he and his wife Jerry loved it there.
Me too. Me too. But yeah, I mean, one of these days I'd love to be involved in some kind of Ernie Pyle Day. One of these days,
Absolutely.
Well,
yes, let's keep the lines of communication open, because I think there's a lot of things that the two of us, and I mean organizational
yeah, we talk about you guys a lot. We are big admirers of the museum and the Friends of Ernie Pyle, and so maybe we should do something together.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to give a huge shout out to Helt Helt Township, because they provide financial support to the museum, so we are able to keep it free. So when you come to the museum, you don't have to worry about paying anything. They've been very gracious, making sure that we have the funds needed to keep the place open. Now, we do take donations, full disclosure, because it does take a lot of money to be able to run an operation. We have staff that we have to pay. Unfortunately, we're not able to keep it open, 40 hours a week or 7 days a week or anything like that. And it's seasonal, but without financial support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do there in Dana at the Ernie Pyle Museum. So a huge thank you and a shout out to the trustees.
Yes.
Very good, Doug. Well, I think we got it. This is good. I mean, we could talk forever. I mean, it's like,
yeah, we could.
We could talk forever, but I think the folks at home now have an idea of what's going on with the Ernie Pyle Foundation.
Yeah. So you're gonna set up the show notes and put in the Complete Works Ernie Pyle link. Great. Complete Works Ernie Pyle at Substack. Go in there and get one every single day to read. There's Brave Men is out again, and also the Ernie Pyle experiment is out there and available. You just do a search on that, and it's you'll be able to hear them. I think it's on YouTube as well, but just the Ernie Pyle experiment at WFIU, and you can hear those. Those are all fictionalized. It's about Ernie and his wife traveling the States before the war. And at the end of each, and I get to play Ernie, which is great because it's radio. No, I don't look anything like him. It's the only chance I'll ever get. So, but I get to read everyone. At the end of every episode, I read one of Ernie's pieces.
Excellent. So anytime anybody wants to do an Ernie Pyle-esque thing, they have to go through the foundation, don't they? Is he public domain? Is it open to like anybody can do a story on him kind of thing? How's that?
Well, it's complicated,
sure.
but we are image right holders and the books and the writings and stuff, so those title names and such are controlled by us. But look, I'm glad it's still around. And if nobody did it, where would it be? Nobody knows where that stuff. It's all in one place now. It's with the foundation, and we do good things. There's nothing selfish about this.
Yeah. That's good. I love it.
Yeah.
Doug, you take us out.
All right. Well, James and Michael, thank you both for coming on, spending some time with us here this afternoon to talk about not only the museum, but more importantly, the foundation as well. You guys are doing great works out there, and I hope that the museum and the foundation can find a way to partner because we're both doing the work of preserving not only Pyle's writing, but his image and getting that history out, making sure it's correct out there. So hopefully we can find something here in the near future.
Let's do it. Yeah, get
that'll
Jerry on here too. Get Jerry Mashin on here.
absolutely.
Oh,
And,
oh my God, there you go,
I
Doug.
tell you what, you mention that to him, and he'll have 10 ideas in the first minute you're talking about how that can happen. So,
You like stuff like that.
yeah,
That's what we need, right? And like I said, we're doing great work here. So, Michael, again, thank you so much for coming out and spending some time with us. And James, thank you for jumping on with us as well. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk with other Pyle enthusiasts and really get that message out of what Pyle does and what he's still doing today, all these years later, 80 years after his death, is still inspiring some people to go out into journalism and know how to properly write.
yeah, yeah.
Very good.
Yep. All right, you guys. It's
Everybody
good to see you.
follow all of us. Follow him,
Yes.
follow them, follow all of us on social media platforms. And Ernie Pyle is out there. Thank you very much.
Bye.